Hello, it's good to see you. Today we are going to be talking all about the TV show Frasier, which, if you've never seen it, is a comedy that ran from 1993 to 2004, and it is one of my favorite shows that I enjoy watching. And I've watched every episode many times. If you've never seen it, you should give it a chance. I think it's a little bit more. I don't know what the word would be. A little more sophisticated as far as a sitcom goes than a lot of sitcoms. I find most sitcoms out there to be just stupid, for lack of a better word. They're not funny. I don't really watch any. Big Bang Theory I liked for probably the first 5 seasons or so. I actually have not watched that. I haven't watched any of the recent seasons of that. But I'd say at least the first 5 seasons I thought were really good. And there are some British TV shows that I like a lot. But as far as American sitcoms, I just honestly, I just don't think many of them are that funny. So I don't watch them. I mean, I try to watch an episode every now and then, but I just don't think they're funny. So, but I like Frasier so much that I bought, I bought the show on DVD and have 11 of these. This is season 1. This was the very first year. This was right after, of course, Dr. Frasier Crane was on Cheers. And then, as you may know, Frasier was a spin-off of the TV show Cheers, which I also like. I like Cheers a lot. I thought it was pretty funny. It definitely had its moments when it was a good, really funny show. And Frasier, I think, ran just as long as Cheers did. I think Cheers ran for either 10 or 11 seasons. I don't remember right now. But Frasier ran for 11 seasons. So I have 11 boxes like this one. And each box is different. It has a different picture and it's a different color, different theme. Like this one has Eddie on it. I don't think they all do. Actually, on the side, I think they do all have Eddie. Eddie was Martin's dog. And Martin Crane is Frasier Crane's dad. And beginning on the first episode of season 1, Martin comes to live with Frasier in his apartment in the Elliott Bay Towers on the counterbalance. And at first, it's very rocky. Actually, throughout the entire 11 seasons, they have their difficult moments because Martin is a lot more kind of down to earth, more like a regular person than Frasier. And of course, we have other members of the show. We have okay, this is Frasier. This is Dr. Frasier Crane, and this is Daphne, who is Martin's physical therapist. Niles Crane, who is Frasier's brother. They're both psychiatrists. The funny thing about that is that they're psychiatrists, but they're honestly just probably the most mixed up people on the show. They are the most messed up people. There's Martin. That's Frasier and Niles' dad. And that's Roz Doyle. That is Frasier's producer on his radio show. And they are these 5 right here are the main people on the show. And there are other characters that you see on a regular basis. And this is Eddie. His name in real life was Moose. Although I think he passed away at some point during the show, and they ended up replacing him with another Jack Russell Terrier that I think was either his brother or his offspring. I can't remember if that's right or not. But the dog's name was Moose, the real dog. So, like this one, each box set has 4 DVDs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each DVD has 6 or 7, roughly 6 or 7 episodes on it. And I'll show you, this is how they all look. You open it up first, like this. And there will be this sort of like a panoramic picture inside. Like here's Frasier, and they're all trying to come through the door, and he's trying to hold the door shut. And here they are on the couch. they're just a funny group. So then you can open it again like this. And then you can see all of the DVDs. And each DVD has a separate picture on it, which is really cool. I think they went to a lot of trouble to make these as interesting as they could. See, like this one here has Niles and Daphne on it. This one has Martin. This one has Roz. She had some crazy eyebrows in the first couple seasons. And then Frasier, right there. So, what I think we can do is we can go through and look at the episodes on the back of the box. Now, there are over 200 episodes of Frasier, and I don't remember everything about every episode, but what we can do, I can go through and read the titles of each episode. Each episode has a title, of course, that's related to that particular episode. And a lot of these I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what goes on in that episode, but I can try to remember a few things along the way. I will tell you the names of the actors. Roz Doyle is played by Perry Gilpin. Niles is played by David Hyde Pierce, which I love him. Daphne is played by Jane Leeves. Martin is played by John Mahoney, and Frasier is played by Kelsey Grammer. And I will read. There's a little summary on the back that tells you about the show. So if you don't know anything about the show, I will read this for you. Emmy Award winner Kelsey Grammer is Frasier, the hilarious psychiatrist first seen on TV's Cheers and subsequently the star of this smash hit comedy series. Making the move from Boston to his former hometown of Seattle, a newly divorced Dr. Frasier Crane finds himself on the radio airwaves as the host of his own call-in advice show. When he's not dealing with the problems of his troubled listeners, he's embroiled in skirmishes at home involving Marty, his retired police detective father, Daphne, his father's physical therapist, his young brother and rival Niles, and Eddie, his father's devious dog, which Eddie is so cute. David Hyde Pierce, Jane Leeves, John Mahoney, and Perry Gilpin complete the comedic cast in this award-winning sitcom, one of television's most enduring and funny series. Enjoy all 24 complete episodes of Frasier's very first season in this 4-disc collection. Sorry, I have a little frog in my throat tonight. All right, the first episode, the pilot, is called The Good Son, and that is the one where it starts out with Frasier. You know, Frasier's back in Seattle from Boston. He has left Frederick behind, who is his son. You know, he was married to Lilith on Cheers, and they have separated. They're going to divorce, and Frederick stayed behind in Boston with Lilith. So he misses his son. The relationship between Frasier and Niles is kind of tense at first. It's kind of like they haven't really spent a lot of time together. So they get together at the coffee shop, Cafe Nervosa, which is where a lot of the scenes for Frasier throughout the 11 seasons take place. And during the first episode, Niles tells Frasier that their father had fallen again. I think he was living on his own. And one thing that becomes clear as the show progresses is that their mother was also a psychiatrist, but she passed away. She had cancer and had passed away at some point in the past. She has already passed away when the show starts. So Martin's living alone, and he has trouble getting around. He was a police officer, and he was shot in the hip trying to break up a robbery in a convenience store, and he never really fully recovered. He has to walk with a cane everywhere he goes. And Niles is concerned because Martin keeps falling, and he feels like he tells Frasier, I don't think he can live on his own anymore. I think he needs to stay with someone. And he makes it clear there in the coffee shop that he thinks that Martin should stay with Frasier. And Frasier's not too keen on that idea because Frasier and Martin have had a very strained relationship for a long time, and he just doesn't feel like it would be a good idea for the two of them to live under the same roof. And it is very bumpy. At first, it's very, very rocky and not great. Because Martin moves in with Frasier, and he brings his dog, and he brings his chair, which to me, I think the chair is like another character in this whole series. He has this really ugly green recliner that he insists on bringing with him into the apartment, and it's just the ugliest chair. It's like something right out of the 70s. It's avocado green with stripes. It's really ugly, and Frasier hates it. But it's Martin's favorite chair. So that was a really bad thing in Frasier's mind, to have this hideous chair in his really stylish, nice apartment. But you just get a first look at Martin and Frasier and Niles in the first episode, and Roz. I think Roz is also briefly in the first episode. I don't think you meet Daphne. I don't think you actually meet Daphne in the first episode. Maybe you do. I don't remember. But Daphne comes along really early on. She's in either the first or second. Somewhere in there she comes along. But I think they want to give you a chance at first to get to know Frasier, Niles, and Martin. Because they're basically the three main characters. But then Niles agrees to pay for a home health care worker to help take care of Martin at Frasier's place. And they interview some different people for the job, and they decide on Daphne. And one thing we learn about Daphne early on is that she's psychic. She tells them she's a bit psychic. And there are examples throughout the show that do suggest that she is psychic. It's never officially confirmed, but they do kind of hint around that she really is to some extent. So you have these other episodes in the beginning. The Good Son, of course, as I said, is the pilot. Space Quest. I honestly don't remember what that one's about. Dinner at 8. I think that's the one where there was this one episode where, I don't think this one is it. Martin wants to take them out to dinner, and he takes them to this place called the Timber Mill, and it's like a steakhouse. And it's really informal, but Niles and Frasier didn't know that going into it, and they both had ties on. And as soon as they came in, the waitresses cut their ties with scissors. So Niles and Frasier were really unhappy about that. And the whole time they're there, Frasier and Niles keep making jokes back and forth about the place, about, it's not nice enough for them. They like really fancy, hoity-toity kind of restaurants, and this one's not like that. And they end up hurting Martin's feelings, and he leaves, and Niles and Frasier vow to finish their meal. They have these big steaks, and they vow to finish them because they feel so bad about hurting Martin's feelings. And they end up sitting there for a really long time. I don't think they ever actually finished. I Hate Frasier Crane. That's another episode. That's the 4th episode. And in that one, and I'm sorry, like I said, I don't remember all the plots exactly, but there was a writer for a newspaper who wrote of course, sort of an opinion piece about Frasier Crane, and he decided that he hates Frasier Crane and he hates his radio show. And this really ticks Frasier off that this person would write such a hateful column about him, and he rants on and on and on about it. And there was this one episode where I don't know if it was this one or not. It might have been this one where the guy agrees to fight Frasier Crane. Like the guy that wrote the article called in because Frasier kept talking about it on the air. And the guy called in and said, hey, I'll meet you anytime, anywhere. He wanted to fight, like a fist fight. So Frasier ends up agreeing to fight the guy. And they agree to meet right outside of Cafe Nervosa. And then when Frasier sees him, he's really a big guy, and he gets scared. So Martin saves the day. Being a former police officer, he calls some of his cop buddies to come and break it up. There's too big of a crowd here. You don't have a permit. You can't do this. And so Frasier gets to save face. Oh, I was gonna beat him up. I was really gonna do it, but it got broken up. So that might have been I Hate Frasier Crane. Here's Looking at You is another one. The Crucible. Call Me Irresponsible. Beloved Infidel. Selling Out. Oops. Death Becomes Him. Miracle on 3rd or 4th Street. That one was good. That was the first Christmas special that they did. And he agreed to work Christmas Day, which I think that's the one where he agreed to work, which meant Roz had to work, and she was really mad because she didn't want to work Christmas Day. She was originally from Wisconsin, and I think she was planning on flying home for Christmas, and I think he messed that up. And they ended up, Frasier came in dressed all ragged. He had on like a holy, raggedy sweatshirt and jeans. Didn't look like he normally did. He's normally dressed really nice. And then after the show, it was really depressing because they wanted people to call in with their stories about Christmas, but most of the people who called in were really depressed, and Frasier and Roz both end up super depressed about Christmas because nobody has any happy stories. So he leaves there and he goes to a diner to eat, but then he realizes he forgot his wallet and he doesn't have any money with him. And there were a couple of homeless guys in there eating. And they assumed Frasier was a homeless guy because he looked rough. I mean, he had on his nasty shirt and jeans, and his hair was all messed up, and they thought he was a homeless man. So they offered to pay for his meal, and it gave Frasier a nice warm feeling. The only problem was when it was time to leave, his really nice Mercedes was parked right out front. He couldn't just go get in it. So he ends up kind of crawling. He walks away like he's leaving, and he waves, and then he has to kind of crawl back under the window and try to get in his car. But then he realized he left his keys in the diner. It was really funny. So I like that Christmas special. Then we're up to disc 3. Guess Who's Coming to Breakfast? Can't Buy Me Love. You Can't Tell a Crook by His Cover. I think that's the one where Martin invites 3 people to the house to play poker. 2 of the people he invites are cops. One of the person he invites is an ex-con, and he makes a bet with Frasier that Frasier cannot tell which one of the 3 is the ex-con and which the 2 were the cops. And Frasier is allowed to observe them while they play poker all night to try to figure out who the ex-con is, and they're not going to tell. And they all know when they come that Frasier's going to try to guess who the ex-con is. And of course he guesses everyone at the end but the ex-con. And then come to find out, Daphne agreed to go out with the ex-con, and Martin said, she said, well, Martin, I thought you said he was someone that could be trusted. And Martin said, yeah, in a room full of 3 cops, of course he can, but not on his own. And she ends up going to this kind of like a bar with pool tables to have a couple drinks with this guy. And Frasier and Niles are so worried about her, and Martin too, that they kind of followed her even though she didn't want them to. They followed her to this place, and she's playing pool with this guy, and it turns out she's a really good pool player. But then she ends up making a difficult shot and missing. No, that's not what happened. No, there were these 2 really rough-looking guys playing, and one of them went to make a difficult shot, and either Frasier or Niles bumped them while they were trying to make the shot, and it messed them up. And that's when Daphne had to play, and she showed that she was really good at playing pool. And there was a big bet involved. But I think she missed the last shot, and they ended up having to run out of this bar to get away from these tough guys that are chasing them. It's actually funnier if you watch the episode than for me to tell you about it. The show where Lilith comes back. Now, Bebe Neuwirth, who played Lilith, made several appearances on the show throughout the 11 years it was on the air. She could not be a regular though because she was, I believe she was starring in at least one Broadway play. She was doing theater stuff and didn't want to be a regular on Frasier because she just couldn't commit to it. It was just too much time for her to be a regular. But she was on the show several times. And the show where Lilith comes back is the first time she's on there. And every time she comes to Seattle, um, it's always funny when she's on the show because Martin really doesn't like her. Niles is not especially fond of her, and it's really funny to watch their interactions. Okay. A Midwinter Night's Dream is the next episode. And after that, excuse me, after that we have And the Whimper Is. I don't remember what that one's about. This I haven't watched season 1 in quite a while. Give Him the Chair. That's the beginning of disc 4. 40 something, which is funny. That's the one where Frasier has to finally admit that he's middle aged. I can't remember what all goes on in that episode, but it is pretty funny. Travels with Martin. The next one is Author. I think that's the one where Frasier and Niles try to write an article together and they end up almost choking each other in a hotel room. Frasier Crane's Day Off. And the last one is My Coffee with Niles. And that one's really good because the entire episode takes place at Cafe Nervosa. And that's the one. See, from the very beginning, from the first time Niles ever saw Daphne, he had a huge crush on her, even though he was married to Maris at the time. Now, Maris is hard to describe. That was his wife. She comes from old money, very wealthy. And you never see Maris. It's kind of like Vera on Cheers. Norm's wife, you never see her. You never see Maris. And it's kind of easy to understand why, because if you hear the way they describe her, no one could play this part. I can't imagine anyone who could be Maris. I can't remember everything about her, every description of her. First of all, she's extremely skinny, like unbelievably skinny, very skinny. She's had a lot of work done. She has a slight webbing between her fingers. She has an underbite. Let's see, what else did they say about her? She can't straddle anything bigger than a Great Dane or something like that. When she ran in the snow, she left no footprints. There are all these things about her that she just doesn't sound human. It's like how can anyone? She once had a chemical peel that made her kidneys visible for a little while. I remember she goes to Antwerp to get her elbows done. And so all these different examples of just crazy stuff about Maris. But anyway, at the beginning of the show, Niles is married to Maris and had been married to her for quite a while. Although he's not really happy with her. He never really has anything very good to say about their marriage for the most part. He just seems very unhappy. But when he meets Daphne, he instantly develops a crush on her. It's very obvious, but she never sees it. Well, not for a long time anyway. And in the last episode, My Coffee with Niles, Frasier finally asks Niles about it. He confronts Niles and asks him if he's in love with Maris, or in love with Daphne. And Niles spews coffee everywhere because he had just taken a drink and he just spews it everywhere. And he admits that he thinks he might have feelings for her. That's just one part of the episode. The main topic of the episode is Niles asks Frasier if he is happy. If his life makes him happy. And it's a nice final episode for that first season. But again, the whole episode takes place at Cafe Nervosa. It's a really good episode. I like it a lot. It was a good way to end this season. So that is season 1. And it was really good. It gives you a chance to get to know the characters. And like any show, it's a little bumpy at first, but not bad. I mean, some shows, the first few episodes are really not good. It's kind of stilted and awkward. The characters are still learning how to interact with each other. But this one really didn't have a lot of that, in my opinion. I felt like it was a little awkward in the first episode or so, but it really hit its stride. I mean, it was just it's like all these characters just meshed so well, almost from the very beginning. And that's one thing I really like about it. Okay, now we have the second season of Frasier. And of course, it's Seattle, so they have the umbrella for all that rain. And again, we have Niles, Roz, Frasier, Daphne, and Martin, and Eddie on the side. And I'll open it and show you. Here we have Niles and Roz, who on the show don't really get along very well. In fact, Niles had to meet Roz probably 3 or 4 times before he ever remembered her name or remembered meeting her. It was like a running joke for a little while. Yeah, he kept introducing himself to Roz, and Roz going, "We've already met several times," and he couldn't remember. So there's Frasier, Daphne, and Martin all together, and there's the Space Needle right there. My brother and his wife lived in the Seattle area for quite a while, and I kind of regret that I never got out there. I've never been there. I'd love to go. And here they're in their raincoats. That's so cute. So this is the complete second season on DVD. Lovely blue color to it. So we have here a bunch of episodes. The first episode in season 2 is Slow Tango in South Seattle. That's one where someone that Frasier, I think it was someone he knew in college, wrote a book. And you have to forgive me, I can't remember his name now. He wrote a book, and it turned out it was a sort of like a hot romance novel. It was based on an affair that Frasier had with his piano teacher when he was a teenager. And he told his college, I think it might have been his roommate, told this guy all about it. And this guy took it and turned it into a novel, like a best-selling novel. And Frasier ends up going back to find his piano teacher because he feels bad, because he feels like he was leaving for college, and he just kind of left and never really told her goodbye. He just left a rose on her pillow, which was like the very end of the book, and it was so sad. And people who found out it was Frasier and that he did that in real life really just hated him for doing that. So Frasier felt guilty, and he goes back to see his piano teacher. And it's really funny because when he first goes into the house, there's an old lady at the piano, and he thinks that's her. And he talks to her and says, you probably don't, do you remember me?" And the lady's going, "I'm trying. And well, we had an affair." And she's kind of, "Oh, okay." So then this old lady starts flirting with him, and come to find out it was her daughter. It wasn't the old lady that he had the affair with. It was this lady's daughter, because then the daughter comes in the room later, and she's beautiful still, and Frasier ends up asking her out, and she said, I wasn't really into older men back then, and I guess I'm still not, and this young handsome man comes to pick her up to go out. It's really funny. That's a good episode. The next one is The Unkindest Cut of All. That's where Freddie, that's Frasier's son. That's where Eddie had to get neutered, and Martin didn't want to take him to be neutered. It's really funny. The Matchmaker. Oh my God, The Matchmaker. I think that's probably my favorite episode. That one is so funny. And that one, I think, won an Emmy. And The Matchmaker has 2 options. You can watch it with the commentary or without. It is hilarious. I love it so much. That's one of my favorite episodes. That one and the one right after it, Flower Child, Flour Child. But The Matchmaker is where there's a new station manager, and he's young and handsome. And Daphne was just bemoaning the fact that she was single and she didn't have anyone to go out with, and she really wanted somebody to date. So Frasier invites the station manager over for Daphne, but the station manager is gay, although Frasier didn't know that. The station manager thought Frasier was hitting on him and asking him out. So there's a lot of confusion when he comes to the house. And it is hilarious. It is so funny. And it comes to light Niles is there, and he's being a real jerk to this station manager because he knows that Frasier invited him there for Daphne, and he doesn't like the idea of anyone taking Daphne out, even though he's married. It's crazy, I know, but he doesn't want Daphne dating anyone. So he's a real jerk to this guy. And he goes into the kitchen and he's just slamming stuff around, and the station manager's name I think was Tom. And Tom comes in the kitchen and said, have I done something to make you mad? And Niles just says no, and he throws something in the sink. And then Tom says something like, well, I get the idea that you have a problem with me dating your brother. And Niles gets the funniest look on his face. He just kind of, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Do you have a problem with me dating Frasier? And then he makes this really funny face and he goes, no. So then he tells Martin in the kitchen, and Martin just busts out laughing. The whole episode is funny to me. It really is. Flower Child is where Niles is trying to decide whether or not he wants to have children, and he decides the best way to tell is to get a bag of flour and carry it around like a baby. And lots of horrible things happen to the bag of flour because he's not paying attention. Like he was waxing, whoever his servant is, wax his car, and he laid the bag of flour up on the top of the car and it just slid off onto the driveway. And the bag of flour, I think, almost caught on fire, and then Eddie ripped into it, and it's just, the bag of flour was covered with duct tape and band-aids, and it was awful. The next episode is Duke's We Hardly Knew Ye, which is where Duke's is the name of a bar where Martin likes to go, where all of his friends go, people that he was on the force with and just friends of his, and he's good friends with Duke, who owns the place. And the place where the bar is gets bought out by this corporation or something that Niles and Frasier have invested in, but they didn't know they were going to tear down Duke's. So they feel really bad about Duke's being demolished because they're going to buy it to tear it down and build something else. So they try to save Duke's. Unfortunately, they are not able to. It was a funny episode. Doesn't sound like it would be, but it is. The next one is The Botched Language of Cranes. And then we go to disc 2, and we have, this is another one of my favorites, The Candidate. Oh my God, The Candidate. It is so funny. It's about this guy that was running for, I can't remember what he was, senator? I think he was running for senator, I'm not sure. And Frasier backs him because he thinks he's really good. He really agrees with his ideas and the things he wants to do. But then he confides in Frasier and tells him that he was abducted by aliens. And that whole exchange where he tells Frasier that out on the balcony is really funny. And then he tries to defend the guy, and there's a misunderstanding again, and it is so funny. He goes on the air and tries to stick up for him, but then he kept saying he has visited with the aliens, he's spoken with the aliens, but come to find out, the aliens that he heard this guy had been communicating with, he thought everyone knew about the alien abduction thing, but it turns out they thought he had illegal aliens working for him. So he sort of told everyone something that this guy didn't want everybody to know, and he ends up losing the election. But then the guy decides, I might move to California because a thing like this might help me there. Okay. But it's really funny. I love that episode because the funniest part to me, he's filming this commercial for the guy, and he does one take before the guy tells him he was abducted by aliens, and does a pretty good job. It's just a practice run. They didn't film it or anything. In the second one, he is visibly upset, and he has to read the lines. And he has to say he's a visionary and he cares about the little people. And the look on his face when he has to say that. And then at the end, he had to say his name, and I can't remember his name, and then say the sane choice, which he was having a really hard time saying that. It's a really funny episode. And then we have Adventures in Paradise Part 1 and Adventures in Paradise Part 2. I think that's where he goes on vacation with somebody and runs into Lilith or something. And then there's Burying a Grudge, Seat of Power, Roz in the Doghouse. And I'm going to have to go a little faster because I have a long way to go. And then we have Retirement is Murder, Fool Me Once, Shame on You, Fool Me Twice, You Scratch My Book, the show where Sam shows up. That's where Sam Malone from Cheers comes to visit. He came out there for help and advice. He was supposed to get married and then got cold feet. And Frasier tries to help him. But then they both find out something very disturbing about his fiancée. Daphne's Room. That one's really funny. The Club. Someone to Watch Over Me. Breaking the Ice. An Affair to Forget. Agents in America, Part 3. The Innkeepers, and Dark Victory. So those are all on the discs for season 2. Season 3. I love the first 5 seasons. They're just awesome. And if you're listening to the installments of the story that I wrote, River Road, in my mind, one of my main characters, Aidan Gervais, looks just like David Hyde Pierce from season 3 of Frasier. He really does. To me, he looks just like that. That is my character. That's Aidan. He looks just like David Hyde Pierce from season 3. See, there he is. He looks like that. I like it in the picture. They're all in their denim on the couch. Ooh, sorry. That's really cool. I like that. Now let's see what episodes we have, because we still have 9 more to go. Or 8 more, sorry. Okay. She's the Boss. That's where Mercedes Rule plays a station manager at the radio station. And she and Frasier don't get along at first. The next episode is Shrink Rap, R.A.P. Martin Does It His Way. I love that. That's where Martin writes. Martin used to write songs just as a hobby. And there was this one that he really liked. And Frasier had it set to music. Or worked with... Frasier and Niles can both play the piano very well. And they worked with Martin to try to write music to go with the lyrics. And then they had an aunt or someone died. And they had to go to the funeral. And Frasier, I think, had to give the eulogy. And he ended up having Martin sing the song. And the title was She's Such a Groovy Lady. And it's actually a catchy little song. The next one is Leapin' Lizards. That's where he tries to play a trick on Bulldog, which is one of the other people at the radio station. He does the sports. And Frasier and Bulldog are always like this. But the lizard ends up biting the news station manager. The next episode is Kisses Sweeter Than Wine. And the next one is Sleeping with the Enemy. The Adventures of Bad Boy and Dirty Girl. And that's the one where Kate, her name was Kate, where Kate and Frasier end up hooking up. And unfortunately, they did so in the booth where Frasier does his show, and they ended up on the table, and they accidentally hit the on-air button, so everyone heard them on the air talking to each other, calling each other a bad boy and a dirty girl, and no one could figure out who Dirty Girl was. They knew Frasier's voice, but they weren't sure who the lady was. Roz eventually figures it out, and that's pretty funny too. Then we have The Last Time I Saw Maris. As you can see, a lot of these titles are plays on phrases or movie titles or book titles. The next one is Frasier Grinch. It's another Christmas episode. It's Hard to Say Goodbye If You Won't Leave. The Friend. That one's pretty funny. Come Lie With Me. Ooh, Moon Dance. That one's very good. That's where, and actually David Hyde Pierce, I think, directed that episode. It's really good. It has an overhead shot. Niles invites a lady to go to a dance with him. And the lady ends up backing out at the last minute. And Daphne had been teaching him to dance because Niles didn't know how. So Daphne asked, can I go with you? I would love to go. And they go, and Daphne just looks beautiful in this nice dress that she got, and they end up dancing and doing the tango, and it's really cool. Really good episode. And then we have the show where Diane comes back. That's the title. And that's where Diane Chambers from Cheers comes to pay Frasier a visit. That one's pretty good. And I heard that, I read somewhere that those two didn't get along in real life. They didn't really get along, but they kind of mended fences. And during the filming of this episode, they kind of made up, and were okay after that and didn't hate each other. Okay, next one is A Word to the Wise Guy. Look Before You Leap. That's definitely one of my favorites. That one, oh my God, it's a leap year, and it's leap day, February 29th. And Frasier encourages everyone to take a leap, try something, be daring, do something you wouldn't normally do. And at the very end, oh my God, he's helping PBS with their pledge drive, and every year he would sing Buttons and Bows. And he was going to try a very challenging aria instead of singing Buttons and Bows. And but everyone else who tried something different for leap year, it didn't work. It failed miserably, and he decided at the last minute, I'm not singing the aria. I'm going to sing Buttons and Bows. The problem is he didn't rehearse ahead of time, and he'd completely forgotten all the lyrics to the song. So he has to just make up lyrics as he goes. It is the funniest thing. That I just laugh so hard every time I see that part where he tries to sing that song from memory. It is hilarious. So that's a really good. I love Look Before You Leap. Then we have High Crane Drifter, Chest Pains, Crane versus Crane. That's where they're both on opposing sides in a legal battle for an older wealthy gentleman. Police Story, where there's smoke, there's fired. Frasier Loves Roz, The Focus Group, and You Can Go Home Again. So that's the third season. Lovely cover for the fourth. See, they're all dressed all nice. And here they've added Bulldog. Now this is Roz. Okay, where you don't have a blur glare. Then Eddie. This is Bulldog. Bob Bulldog Briscoe. Martin, Niles, Daphne, and of course Frasier. And yeah, this was a good season. Actually, honestly, I think all the seasons are great. Now, season 10 was a little rough. There were some episodes in there I didn't really care for. And it's not that they were that terrible. It's just that compared to the other ones were so good that really anything by comparison would look not as good. So let's see here. We have The Two Mrs. Cranes, Love Bites Dog. Oh, see. Bulldog is a womanizer, and then he falls for this woman who treats him like he treats women, and he just falls apart. And it's really good. The Impossible Dream, A Crane's Critique, Head Game, and Mixed Doubles. Then we have A Lilith Thanksgiving, which I didn't really like that one. I didn't think that one was very good. That's where Frasier goes back to Seattle. He and Lilith want to get Freddie into this really prestigious private school, but they're not having much luck, and I just didn't think it was that good of an episode. But the next one is Our Father Whose Art Ain't Heaven. That one is hilarious. Oh my goodness, that one is so funny. It's where Martin is led to believe that Frasier likes this really hideous painting of a bullfighter in this restaurant, and he doesn't really like it. He just said that he liked it to get a good table and to get, he didn't have a reservation, so he just the owner of the restaurant had up these paintings, and they were just hideous. And Martin bought one for Frasier. It was very expensive because he thought Frasier would like it, and he always feels like he never knows what to give Frasier for a gift. So he was so excited to finally give him something he thought he would really like. But then, of course, eventually the truth comes out that he hates it, and it is so funny. Oh my God! Then Martin starts crying. He tries to hide it, but then Frasier realizes Martin's crying, and that makes Frasier cry. And Niles had been back in the bedroom looking for a hairdryer during all of this. And he comes out and they're crying, and he's just, why is everyone crying? And then he was upset about something also, and that just brought it out in him, so he starts crying. It's really funny. It's a good episode. I know it sounds sad, but it's actually not. That's what I love about these people. I love the show because they can take subject matters that don't sound like they would be funny at all and make them absolutely hilarious. They're so funny. The next one is Dad Loves Sherry. The Boys Just Whine. Sherry was the name of Martin's girlfriend for a while, and she's kind of brash and, I don't know, just not the kind of person Niles and Frasier like, and they never did like Sherry. The next episode is Liar Liar, and then 3 Days of the Condo, and Death and the Dog. I think that's the one where Eddie had been carrying around this Barbie doll that he found at the dog park, and he had lost it, so he got really depressed. But no one could figure out why he was so depressed, and they brought in a dog psychiatrist and all kinds of things trying to help him. And then they all sit around and start thinking about their own life, and they start thinking about death and depression, and everybody's sitting around in the living room area all depressed and just thinking all these deep thoughts. And then in the background you see Eddie discover he finds his doll, and he's all happy again. And everybody's sitting around just so sad. It's funny. 4 for the Seesaw is the next one. To Kill a Talking Bird. That one's really funny too. In this one, Roz's Krantz and Goldenstein are dead. That one's good. The Unnatural. That's where Frasier has to play softball or something, and he's not good at it. But he's trying to convince his son that he is. Roz's Turn. That's where she produces a radio show and has John Glenn narrate it. It's about space exploration. It's really good. Ham Radio. Oh my God, that one is so funny. Frasier does this, takes a script from an old time radio show and recreates it. It is just really, I don't even know how to describe it. It is so funny. Ham Radio. That's one of my favorites. And then 3 Dates and a Breakup. Daphne Hates Sherry. Are You Being Served? Which is the name of one of my favorite British shows. Not on anymore. Ask Me No Questions and Odd Man Out. So that is season 4. And here we have season 5. Number 5. The complete 5th season. And here they are. Here's some scenes from season 5. I love Daphne's hair right there. I love that. It's so pretty. See? My hair's not thick enough to do that, but it's really cool. I like it. I like Roz's hair too, but I really like Daphne's hair. Okay, let's see. We have Frasier's Imaginary Friend. That one's funny. The Gift Horse. That's where Frasier, I think Frasier purchases Agates, which was Martin's horse when he was still a police officer, and has him put up in a stable to be taken care of. And Martin gets to go visit him. I don't remember much else about that episode. Halloween, The Kid, The 1000th Show. Halloween, I think, is the one where Roz discovers she's pregnant. Voyage of the Damned, My Fair Frasier, Desperately Seeking Closure. Oh, Perspectives on Christmas. That one's really funny. Everybody's having a terrible time, and they explain why their Christmas has been so awful. That one's really good. But it's funny. I know it sounds like it wouldn't be, but it's very funny. The reasons their Christmases are awful are hilarious. The next one is Where Every Bloke Knows Your Name. That's where Daphne frequents this bar. It's mainly British people, and Frasier was looking for a place to go hang out, and he went there with her one time for some reason, and really liked it. It reminded him of Cheers. It kind of had that same feeling, and he wants to start hanging out there, and she's not okay with her boss hanging out where she likes to hang out. So they end up trying to decide it with a game of darts, but unfortunately, they're both really good and they kept tying. But then Daphne thinks of a really clever way to trip him up and make him lose his focus. It's really good. Next one is Ain't Nobody's Business If I Do, in quotes, and that's where Niles and Frasier think that Martin is going to ask Sherry to marry him. And then the zoo story, the Maris counselor, the ski lodge, room service, beware of Greeks. I didn't like that one. That episode was just off. It just didn't fit with any of the other episodes. It was just so, I didn't like that one. I don't watch that one typically. The next one is The Perfect Guy and Bad Dog, Frasier Got a Habit, First Date, Roz and the Schnoz. That one is really funny. That's where she finds out that, see, her baby's dad was really young. He's in college, and they agreed that she would raise the baby by herself. But the guy's parents want to meet her, and then when they come, they have these enormous noses, and Roz is freaking out because she's afraid her kid's going to have a big nose. There are a lot of nose puns that are just, they shouldn't be funny, but they are. Oh my God. I like that one. The next one is The Life of the Party, then Party Party, and Sweet Dreams. So that is the 5th season. And then we have season 6, and they're all piled up on each other with Eddie right there with his tongue sticking out. See, they always have Eddie around. And here's Frasier holding Eddie right there. And back here too. Now let's see, season 6. Okay. Oh, and this is about the time that the radio station changed formats and everyone lost their jobs, including Frasier. And it starts with season 1, Good Grief. That's where Frasier is still kind of in shock over losing his job. He's now unemployed. Frasier's Curse. Good Grief and Frasier's Curse are both very good. Dial M for Martin. Hot Ticket, First Do No Harm, Secret Admirer, How to Bury a Millionaire, The Seal Who Came to Dinner. That one was pretty funny. I enjoyed that. Niles wants to host a party. He and Maris have split up, and he wants to host a dinner party at the beach house that his attorney got for him in the divorce. And he wants to host a dinner party, but unfortunately, the evening of the dinner party, a dead seal washes up on the beach, and the smell is just ruining everything. And he and Frasier have to get rid of this dead seal somehow, and it's just hilarious the ways they try to get rid of this seal and the problems that it causes. The next one is Roz Alone, Roz, a lone. Merry Christmas, Mrs. Moskowitz. That one's good. The Good Samaritan. Our Parents, Ourselves. The one where Woody shows up. Now that one's funny. Woody Boyd from Cheers. That one's really good. It's really funny. And then we have 3 Valentines. Woody's in town for a wedding. To Tell the Truth. Decoys. Dinner Party. Taps at the Montana. That one's good. IQ. That one's really funny. I like that. Where Niles and Frasier find out that their mom had IQ tests done on them when they were young and told them that they were only 2 points apart, but it turns out that Niles' IQ is much higher than Frasier's. So then they're so competitive anyway, which is why she didn't tell them, because they are so competitive. She knew that they would just drive each other crazy. They end up both making fools of themselves, long story short. Dr. Nora, When a Man Loves Two Women, Visions of Daphne, and Shut Out in Seattle. So that's season 6. And then season 7, there's some stuff that happens in season 7. This is the season where Daphne finally finds out through Frasier, accidentally, that Niles has been crazy about her for 6 years. And everything changes between them after that. But that's not the only focus of season 7, but that does happen during season 7. Yeah. Okay, so we have Mamma Mia, Father of the Bride, Radio Wars. That one's good. Everyone's a Critic, The Dog That Rocks the Cradle. That's where Bulldog ends up being a babysitter for Roz and her little girl, and ends up falling for Roz and keeps scaring off all her dates. That was pretty good. Rivals, a czar, Tsar, a czar is born, and that's where Martin has this pewter bear statue with a clock in the stomach, and the Antiques Roadshow was coming to Seattle, and he wanted to take the bear clock to see if it was worth anything. And at first, Frasier and Niles didn't want to have anything to do with it. They said, we'll go with you, but we don't. They wanted to put the bear clock on TV, and Frasier and Niles at first were going, nah, you go ahead, because they figured it would be something really embarrassing. But it turns out that the bear clock originally belonged to the Romanoff family. So Frasier and Niles suddenly want to be on TV to be seen with the bear clock, so everyone will think that they're descended from the Romanoff family. But it turns out that the bear clock was stolen from one of the Romanoffs by a scullery maid, and it turns out that their ancestor is not the Romanoffs, but it's the scullery maid. So it's, in the end, Martin ends up with a Winnebago, but you have to watch it to find out why. Okay. Next one is The Late Dr. Crane, The Apparent Trap, and then Backtalk. Backtalk is where Daphne finds out that Niles has had a thing for her for a long time. And then we have The Fight Before Christmas, and the next one is RDWRER, which is the personalized plate that Martin put on his Winnebago. It's supposed to stand for Road Warrior, but it looks like RDWRER. And then we have They're Playing Our Song, Big Crane on Campus, Out with Dad, Something About Dr. Mary. That one's good. Not just because it's about Mary, but it's actually funny. Wine Club, Hot Pursuit, Morning Becomes Entertainment, To Thine Own Self Be True, The Three Faces of Frasier, Dark Side of the Moon. See, Daphne at this point, Daphne Moon, was engaged to Niles' attorney. They met while he was working on Niles' divorce, and they started going out, and they ended up getting engaged. But after she found out about Niles having a thing for her, it really made her start to second guess. Do I really want to marry him? Do I want to pursue something with Niles? She wasn't sure what to do, and she started lashing out in anger, which caused her to cause damage to someone's car or something. She had to go to a therapist. And then we have Something Borrowed, Someone Blue, and that's the last episode, and that takes place at Daphne's wedding. Will she marry Donnie? Will she not? And she ultimately chooses not to, and she flees her own wedding in Martin's Winnebago with Niles. It's kind of cute. Okay, and then we have the complete 8th season. And again, we have the 5 characters and Eddie down here, right there. And on the side of this one, we only have Frasier. We don't have Eddie on there. And then Niles and Daphne get together. Now, around this time, Jane Leeves was pregnant in real life. So they played it off as just weight gain. It's obvious that she's pregnant, but they tried to play it off like she just gained a lot of weight. And then she goes away to a fat camp, and he comes back after she has the baby. So, okay, the first episode is And the Dish Ran Away with the Spoon, parts 1 and 2. The Bad Son, The Great Crane Robbery, Taking Liberties, Legal Tender Love and Care, The New Friend, Merry Christmas, Mary. That's where Frasier does the Christmas parade with Dr. Mary, which is a lady who was working at the bakery. And Frasier gave her a chance as the producer while Roz was out for a little while. And it's really funny. I love those two together, Dr. Mary. And she's not really a doctor, but people started calling her that when she was the producer and started yapping on Frasier's show. And I like those two together. It's funny. Frasier's Edge, Cranes Unplugged, Motor Skills. That one's really funny. That's where Frasier and Niles take a shop course at a community college together. That one's really funny. The Show Must Go Off, Sliding Frasier's. That shows two different perspectives of how things would have turned out in a given scenario if he had made a different choice. Hungry Heart, Hooping Cranes, Hooping. That's where Niles makes a half-court shot and wins a truck. It's pretty funny. So everyone thinks he's this big basketball person, and he's not, and it's pretty funny. Docu.drama, DOCU.DRAMA. It Takes Two to Tangle, Forgotten But Not Gone, Daphne Returns, The Wizard and Roz, Semi-Decent Proposal / A Passing Fancy, A Day in May, that one's good too, and The Cranes Go Caribbean. So that is season 8. 3 more. Then we have season 9. Ooh. So they're starting to look more and more fancy on every cover. They're less informal. And this is one of the ones where Niles gets a segue. See, let's see here. I think he actually kind of looks like Alan Alda right there. This was for a Halloween special where he dressed up like Martin. They were supposed to dress up as their hero, and to him, his dad was his hero. He kind of looks like Alan Alda, though. Okay, the first episode is Don Juan in Hell. And we have The First Temptation of Daphne. That's where Daphne finds out that one of Niles' patients has a crush on him. So she sneaks into Niles' files and looks her up and finds out where she works. And it's a huge breach of confidentiality. And Daphne and Niles had to work that out. Honestly, I was not that crazy about the relationship of Niles and Daphne. I thought it was better when you still had that tension there where Niles had this crush on her. But after they got together, it just, I mean, I know there's only so much you can do with that. They carried it for 7 seasons. You know, you can't go forever with him just having this unrequited love for her. I mean, I understand they had to get them together eventually, but I just think it was better before they got together. And we have The Return of Martin Crane, Love Stinks, Room Full of Heroes. That's where they dressed up as their hero. And that episode was okay. It wasn't my favorite. Blazy Boy, B-L-A-Z Boy. That one's really funny. That's where, believe it or not, Frasier accidentally sets fire to Martin's chair and heaves it over the balcony. It's really funny. Then we have the 200th episode, Sharing Kirby, Junior Agent, Bully for Martin, Motherlode Part 1, Motherlode Part 2, then Juvenilia, The Proposal, that's where Niles proposes to Daphne, Wheels of Fortune, 3 Blind Dates, War of the Words, Death Trap, The Love You Fake, Cheerful Goodbyes, Frasier Has Spokane, The Guilt Trippers, and Moons Over Seattle. Now, season 10, I had to wait quite a while to get this one. I got this one long after I got all the other seasons on DVD. I don't remember what the holdup was. I think there was actually a song or something that they were having trouble getting, the rights to produce it on DVD. There was something holding it up because it took forever for this to come out. I waited and waited and waited for season 10. I love this one where they go to La Porte d'Argent together, and that one's very funny. That's Door Jam. Door Jam is very funny. Now, there are some episodes in season 10 that I didn't care for at all. I don't think they're any good. But you can see them all here. You're just wearing basic black. It's very simple. But they all look happy. At least they're smiling. And then you can see just some random pictures from episodes of season 10. So we have The Ring Cycle, I didn't really care for that one. Enemy at the Gate, Proxy Prexy, Kissing Cousin, Tales from the Crypt, Star Mitzvah. Now that one is hilarious. I love that. That's where Freddie is having his bar mitzvah, and he has asked Frasier to speak at his bar mitzvah, and in honor of the occasion, Frasier decides to deliver it in Hebrew, and he has this guy at the station help him with the pronunciation and translating his little speech into Hebrew, but he makes the guy mad. It's a Star Trek. He messes up a Star Trek thing for him. So he teaches him all the words, but he teaches him the words in Klingon, which Frasier doesn't know the difference. So he gets up there and he makes a speech in Klingon. It's really funny. I don't know how he did this without laughing. Saying all that stuff in Klingon is so funny. Star Mitzvah is another one of my favorites. Bristle While You Work. This is the one where Niles had his heart trouble. I didn't care for any of these. Bristle While You Work, Part 1. Rooms with a View, Part 2. And then Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Part 3. I didn't really care for any of those. And then we have We Two Kings and Door Jam. That one's really good, where they go to this exclusive health, it's like a spa, like a day spa. The Harassed. Lilith Needs a Favor. That's where she tries to convince Frasier that they should have another child together, so that Freddie will have a full sibling and she wants to have another child. And then we have Daphne Does Dinner. That one's okay. Trophy Girlfriend. Fraternal Schwins, like the bicycle Schwinn. That's where Frasier and Niles have to learn how to ride bikes. Kenny on the Couch. Zooey Deschanel is in that one. That was pretty good. Road to Perdition. Some Assembly Required. Farewell Nervosa. That's where Frasier and Niles end up being banished from Cafe Nervosa. That's where Elvis Costello guest stars as this guy that comes and sings in the Cafe Nervosa on a regular basis, and Frasier and Niles hate it because he's so loud and they don't like it, so they end up having to try to find another coffee shop. One time Niles sneaks back in because they both made a vow never to go back, and he snuck in one time because he saw Roz in there, and he ends up getting up and doing like a maraca solo with Elvis Costello, and Frasier spots him. It's really funny. And then we have The Devil and Dr. Phil. That one's pretty funny. It involves BB, who is Frasier's agent. It's pretty funny. Then we have Fathers and Sons, Analyzed Kiss, and A New Position for Roz. That's where she leaves KACL to be a station manager at another radio station. And then we have the final season, the 11th season, the complete final season of Frasier. And here they are all together. I like to think that these people really liked each other and that there weren't any hard feelings. Now, I honestly don't know, but I hope they were really good friends. Okay, so we have the final episodes. We have No Sex, Please, or Skittish, A Man, a Plan, and a Gal, Julia. The Doctor is Out. That one's funny. The Babysitter, The Placeholder. The Placeholder is very funny. I'm Listening. Maris Returns. That's where she murders her polo playing boyfriend, and Niles gets mixed up in it. Murder Most Maris. Guns and Neuroses. CBGBs. That one's pretty funny. The CBs. SEABEES. That's the Seattle Broadcasters Award, and Frasier gets to host it, and it's all kinds of things go wrong. High Holidays, that one's really funny. It's where Frasier wants to rebel. Niles wants to rebel and realizes he's never done anything wild in his life, so he decides he's going to get high on pot. So he purchases a pot brownie from Roz's neighbor, but unfortunately, Martin accidentally eats the pot brownie and he ends up getting stoned. It's really funny. That one's good. High Holidays. Frasier Light, Lite. The the Anne who came to dinner. Anyone with Anne Hodges in it is funny. She's in The Placeholder and the Anne who came to dinner, and she is so hilarious. Freudian Sleep, Caught in the Act, Boo, that's where Frasier scares Martin and he ends up having a cardiac event. Not a heart attack, but a cardiac event. Coots and Ladders, Match Game, Miss Right Now, and Frasier Makes Three, Detour, Croc Tales, which I didn't like that one. That one was awful. And then the very last episode is Good Night, Seattle. And I thought it was a good final episode. I enjoyed it. So that is all of my box sets of Frasier, which is an awesome show. If you've never seen it, if you have access to Netflix, it is on Netflix if you're interested. I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime or not. I have never checked. But I know it's on Netflix because I've watched it on Netflix before. So anyway, if you've never checked it out, you definitely should. Give it a try. See if you like it. And that's it. That's all I got. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again really soon.